Two U.S. congressmen say their computers were hacked by people working in China, but Chinese officials have denied any involvement. Both congressmen have called for the passage of a resolution to offer more protection to congressional computer networks. I caught up with both congressmen involved in the situation on Capitol Hill.
First of all, the top IT people said it looked very clear, but not absolute, that the attack came from China. There was an enormous amount of mutually reinforcing information, including a Chinese IP address, what it is that they seem to be going for, which is our China files. The fact that especially my Human Rights Committee computers, where we do keep huge amounts of information about legislation, individual data files on people, dissidents, not just in China, but Vietnam, in Belarus, and everywhere else. And you know, I do a lot of work on those issues, and unfortunately that was all destroyed. So we were told that it was almost assuredly China, probably the Chinese government. It's people working in complicity with them, but it's not absolute. You know, the whole cyberspace is such that making absolute identifications does make it hard, especially if you have a very savvy perpetrator on the other side.
The Bush administration's reportedly downplaying it and saying we should just the people involved should kind of just be quiet about it. Why do you think that's occurring? What are your thoughts on that?
Originally, some of the people even said, "Don't bring it up," and you know, and I questioned it right away. Why? Especially since other members were not being advised that their sensitive information could be susceptible to an attack. When Frank Wolf and I just casually were talking about it, that's when we found out that both of us had been hit. I mean, it wasn't like we ran out with a press release. You know, it was like, well, these things happen. We know the Pentagon gets hit all the time, but since some of this information, while it's not top secret, it's sensitive about human rights, we thought it was time to go public. And Frank's resolution basically calls for a very robust investigation, but also to advise members on what steps to take. Because to my knowledge, nobody, or very few, were said, this is what you have to do, this is what you have to watch out for. It was like, you know, see no evil, hear no evil, say no evil. We've been hit. Let's take corrective action.
Yeah, why do you think there's no system in place for dealing with issues like this, and should there be in the future?
I think in terms of firewalls and protections, you know, we've got very savvy people here, but obviously there's somebody always trying to find a way to breach it. I don't understand why you wouldn't want to advise people to be very sensitive. It's just, you know, I had an example. I'll never forget this. My first trip to the Soviet Union was in 1982, January. I traveled with two other members of Congress, very liberal members. I'm more of a conservative. They were Democrat, I was Republican. We met with Jewish refuseniks for 10 days in Leningrad and in Moscow. The embassy said, don't keep any papers from the refuseniks, from the dissidents, because what will happen, they might steal them, they might stop you and take them. And one of the members laughed at that and said, oh, they'll never get it from me, ha ha. Well, every bit of information I had, I got out through the diplomatic bag. One of the other members did the same thing. The third member, who dissed it all, thought it was all a bunch of nonsense. We were stopped in Leningrad. They went through his pockets. They found a hoard, a boatload of information about individual Jewish refuseniks. And they took it. And they held us for a day, made us miss our flight. You know, we were questioned and all that. And some of those people were retaliated against. So, you know, you got to be... You know, and that was with a warning. He was told, don't keep it. Don't keep anything in your room or in your luggage, and certainly get it out to the proper channels, which are immune from search or seizure, like the diplomatic bag. So I have learned that and remembered that all my career. So we were careful what we had on our computers. When we listed names of dissidents, like we do in the Human Rights Act for Vietnam, they were well-known people that raising their cases right here in Washington and elsewhere is a good thing. There are other dissidents who are much lower profile that if you surface their name, they're more likely to be arrested and get or met out a longer prison sentence. So there's a lot of judgments that have to be made, but a lot of members don't realize how susceptible they are. They send out emails. They don't realize it could be watched. It could be, you know, the capability is there to, you know, particularly if you communicate with somebody in China, to find out where it's going to, what your IP address is, and then if it's Yahoo and they send something back, to open up the vault and get all the information about who it is that they're communicating with.
So what's the next step?
Well, the next step is for the House Administration Committee and really the leaders of Congress to come up with a much more robust plan for protecting our computers and our files and the like, and to make sure everybody is aware that there's hostiles out there. They're trying to breach. If they get through and you have sensitive information, it could make a very bad difference.
What specific evidence do you have that the People's Republic of China was involved in the hacking of your staffers' computers?
It was confirmed to me by intelligence agencies of our government and also by the House Information Resources people.
China actually has denied that anyone was involved in this situation,
shocking.
reportedly. So what's your reaction to that?
It's like that Humphrey Bogart in Casablanca where he says he's shocked that there's gambling in the place. I mean, do you expect the China to acknowledge here's a country that is putting on a genocide Olympics? They're supporting the Khartoum government which is committing genocide against individuals. 400,000 people have died in that genocide in Darfur. Women are being raped. Young kids are starving to death. And the Chinese are selling them the weapons for the Janjaweed. The same Chinese who plundered Tibet, who won't allow someone to have a picture of the Dalai Lama. The same Chinese government under this administration leadership who have the implementation of the crackdown policy in Tibet with regard to the Buddhists. The same Chinese government that has 35 Catholic bishops in jail and under house arrest today. The same China government that is selling weapons to countries that are a direct threat to many people in Western Europe. The same Chinese government that has several hundred Protestant house church leaders, and the same Chinese government that has arrested many Uyghurs. You would be surprised that they would say they didn't do it. It's the government of thuggery. Of course they would deny, but we have conclusive proof from our intelligence people.
Now that they have all this information, do you feel like your safety personally is threatened?
No, my safety's fine. No, my safety's fine.
The Bush administration reportedly is kind of downplaying the situation.
The Bush
What's your thoughts
administration
on
is
that?
very weak on this issue. Many of our agencies have also had cyber attacks come against them. I can't get into the list, but there are a number that have. For some reason, the Bush administration's motto is sort of, you remember that song, Simon and Garfunkel, the boxer? Man hears what he wants to hear and disregards the rest. They're only hearing what they want to hear, and they're disregarding the fact that China is having cyber attacks against many federal agencies, Capitol Hill, and didn't you read the National Journal piece where they actually went into Secretary Guterres' computer and stripped it? So, and the administration never said a word.
Why do you think this is the case? That they're not doing anything about it?
I think you should ask the administration why they're not speaking out about this government that is promoting, enabling, cooperating, helping genocide take place in Darfur. Why would they not speak out? Why would they be silent? I mean, they don't even criticize the Chinese for what they're doing in Darfur. I led the first delegation to Darfur. It's horrible. At that time, there were over 200-some-thousand people that had been killed. The Janjaweed, with weapons sold by the Chinese, circled the camps, and when the women come out in the morning, they rape the women and they burn the camps. And so I don't know why the administration doesn't really speak out on the issue. Why does the administration not speak out on the issue of the persecution, human rights violations taking place in Vietnam?
So you feel like this is just another example of them not speaking out on these safety issues and concerns?
On this issue, the administration gets an F. They've actually failed.
On Capitol Hill, I'm Nicholas Balassi for CNSNews.com.